week. Right now, that system is dropping snow in the Pacific Northwest. Right now on the National Weather Desk, severe weather from snow in the Northwest to the threat of storms in the South and Midwest. We are tracking a busy week ahead. Also, storm-related erosion is causing concerns in California.
It's fairly dangerous, especially if you're in the water and you're near those breaks.
Are you familiar with St. Elmo's fire? Not the movie, the weather phenomenon.
It's created when the atmosphere becomes significantly charged enough to create a discharge of plasma.
We're keeping a close eye on Washington's upcoming cherry blossom bloom.
And we are starting to see some green buds on the tree.
And on this Valentine's Day, the relationship between flowers and the weather.
Can you leave them on the porch?
No, you don't want to. Flowers will freeze.
From our nation's capital, this is the National Weather Desk.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the National Weather Desk. I am Angela Brown. We are tracking a major storm system that could bring severe weather to tens of millions of people this week. Right now, that system is dropping snow in the Pacific Northwest. Now, this is video from the summit at Snoqualmie Ski Resort, which already had 9 inches on the ground last night. That snow should taper off today and then move west. Heavy snow could fall in portions of Colorado and New Mexico. Many highways in the Cascade Mountains were closed because of the snow. There are several examples tweeted by Washington State DOT and others. I-90 seen here was closed in both directions for a while because of all of that snow, which should taper off later today. The major threat? Severe weather in the south. On Wednesday, the threat of severe storms stretches from Texas to Ohio, with the biggest concerns in Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas. The northern plains will also see snow. On Thursday, that threat moves east with a large swath from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes under a threat of severe weather. So, with severe weather possible across the south and southeast later this week, we are looking at the ingredients meteorologists look for to accurately forecast the risk to you. Macon meteorologist Ryan Mirando is here to explain.
There are some ingredients in the atmosphere that we're looking for to forecast for severe weather. The main three that we're keeping an eye on is for moisture. Think of that like the gas or the fuel for us. We need instability. Those are like the fumes, the actual part that gets ignited. And then we need a lifting mechanism. This acts like a spark that really fires up everything and gets the storms to be in full force. So the moisture, we need some warm, moist air right at the surface, generally with dew points greater than 55 degrees. That's our measure of moisture in the atmosphere. And if I show you this temperature sounding, the line there, that is the temperature profile. Notice right at the surface, the air temperature is much warmer than up above. This creates a hot air balloon effect, air that wants to rise up. So when the cold front comes through, that's our lifting mechanism or our spark. That starts the air to start to rise, condense, and cool into clouds and eventually into strong to severe thunderstorms.
And now to California, where a town is grappling with storm-related changes to their shoreline. Christian Balderas has that story.
With time, erosion along the Santa Cruz coast is inevitable, as one painter who visits Steamer Lane once a week points out.
Natural Bridges at one time had 3 arches. Now it only has 1.
But after a chunk of the cliff recently collapsed following severe winter storms, a renewed sense of awareness and worry about the impacts of climate change and sea levels rising, especially among surfers.
It's fairly dangerous, especially if you're in the water and you're near those breaks. Because the way the waves break, it's really good to be right up against the cliff. And if you're wrong place, wrong time, and the cliff comes down, that's a kind of scary scenario.
Surfers say their concern changes to the shoreline is making waves unpredictable, pointing to new strips of beach and boulders the city installed to reinforce the cliffside. This sign now warning people the surf has changed. Steamer Lane is just part of the damage in the West Cliff area. In total, there's been $5 million in damages due to severe January storms here. Thousands of tons of riprap need to be replaced, and part of the pathway and road remains destroyed and eroded. Most recently, the city installed 200 tons of boulders and fabric to reinforce the cliffside. Soon they hope to install coastal monitoring and more cliffside reinforcements. The city is still waiting on more assessment and money from FEMA.
The longer it takes for us to put more rock there, the more it's going to cost to do whatever we're going to do eventually.
Now to Austin, Texas, where we've been telling you about a recent ice storm that left thousands of people without power for days. Now the lights are back on, and tree owners are making some really difficult decisions. Betty Cross has more.
Joel Hull is trying to make the best of a bad situation. Tree limbs lost to the ice storm will be fueling his fire pit this winter. It's small consolation, considering the cuts made to remove these limbs and make this firewood could expose trees to oak wilt. That could be as big a hazard as the ice storm.
I guess all of these trees are now at risk.
The smell of sap attracts too small to see beetles that can carry the oak wilt fungus around the neighborhood.
They catch the smell of a fresh cut from an oak quarter mile away. They can travel impressive distances. So they fly over, they crawl around on that fresh cut, and in the process they deposit the spores from the fungal mat of the infected oak that they just left.
Eliminating the smell is inexpensive and easy.
You want to go out and you want to get a can of latex spray paint, flat black, just for aesthetic reasons. You're not sealing the cut. What you're doing is you're hiding the smell of the sap.
The open wounds on trees couldn't come at a worse time. Oak wilt is spread from February to June, which means the tree trimming going on now is creating new wounds. And the fresher the cut, the more likely it is to attract tiny beetles.
And in Washington, D.C., the cherry blossom trees along the National Mall attract big crowds every single year. Science is involved when figuring out the best time to actually see the flowers, but it's also a guessing game. Joy Wang found out more about it, including a special tree that helps signal when peak bloom is on the way.
Well, we're on the tidal basin amidst the cherry trees, and of course there's no movement yet at all on the vast majority of the trees, but the one tree that's known as the indicator tree moves about a week or 10 days ahead of the others, and we are starting to see some green buds on the tree. When 70% of that tree is showing the buds, we'll say it's at stage 1, which is the green bud stage.
So the green bud, stage 1, but it's one of 6 stages, so we've got a little bit of ways to go.
Right. The indicator tree is running about 2 weeks ahead of where it was last year. But again, green bud is just the first of the 6 stages that culminates with peak bloom. Long way to go in winter yet, but it has been warmer so far this winter. Reasonable to expect we may see peak bloom before its historic average date of April 4th.
For the official timeline, though, we're going to have to wait until March 1st to find out.
There's a lot of winter to go yet. We've still got a real broad range of dates that we're looking at, but we'll make the announcement on March 1st, narrowing that window down to 4 days when we expect peak bloom to occur.
And what's really cool about this process is there's a lot of science behind it, too.
It's absolutely scientific. It's based on high temperatures each day, which moves you towards peak bloom. Problem is, we can't get the good data. Give us the high temperature every day for the next 6 weeks. I could tell you exactly when peak bloom is going to happen. But of course, we don't quite have that capability yet in our forecasting.
If you have allergies and want to be ready to enjoy the upcoming blooms wherever you live, allergists recommend you start taking your medications in mid-February. So we're talking right now here. If you take over-the-counter nasal steroid medications, they need about 2 weeks to reach their peak effect. An allergist with the National Jewish Health says you need to get ahead of these allergens. Otherwise, your symptoms could get worse throughout the season.
In the spring, it's the tree pollen, and again, before the leaves are on the trees, the pollen is flying around. Pollen flies hundreds of miles. So it's less important what tree is in your front yard. It's more important the trees that are relevant in your area.
And experts say Valentine's Day is a good milestone for allergy medications, especially for areas with a true winter with dormant plants and also dormant trees. This has been one of those winters where some places have seen little snow while others are simply buried in it. Anchorage, Alaska is one of those places that has seen enough. Record snow this year means 3 of the city's snow storage sites are filled beyond capacity. The others, of course, are filling up fast. If they run out of room, city officials may have to let snow pile up in some neighborhoods. Another option, allowing the snow to pile up even higher in some spots. Moving to the Jersey Shore, where authorities are investigating after a dead whale was found on Monday. The team is trying to determine the type of whale, of course, and why it died. Overall, the remains of around 20 whales have been recovered along the East Coast in the last few months, and we will be right back.
I'm meteorologist Charlie Lopresti with a look at the Northeast. Temperatures today will top out in the 40s and even low 50s in some areas. Parts of northern Maine will be a little bit colder. Any snow in northern New England from last night, that has moved out. Notice a clearing sky. Today, that's about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Winds will be a little gusty out of the northwest. And again, temperatures, they're running seasonably mild. Now, more clouds start to move in on Wednesday. Look for more clouds than sun. We're introducing a few rain showers during the afternoon.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region. Up and down the 95 corridor. Looks like a chilly start, some 30s and 40s at about 9 a.m. By lunchtime, well into the 50s in most locales and touching near 60 in the afternoon with a good deal of sun for our Valentine's Day. But the next weather maker approaches could give a straight chance of a shower heading into late Tuesday night, early Wednesday, and a better risk of rain for later on in the week. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for the day. Birmingham, 70 degrees. Pensacola, 72. 67 in Raleigh, 79 in Tampa. Looks like we are seeing clear skies across the area, but we do have our next weather maker. This front that's going to be moving in behind this area of high pressure that's over just east of Jacksonville. As the front pushes through, it'll probably be giving us some spotty showers and thunderstorms as we get into Tuesday overnight across parts of Birmingham and Atlanta up towards Nashville. But Florida looks nice and sunny until the weekend.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Welcome back, everyone. Today is Valentine's Day, and happy Valentine's Day. And for most people, that means flowers. But where do we get such great flowers, especially in February? And how come they don't freeze in frigid temperatures? Meteorologist Emily Gracie spoke with an expert about flowers and winter weather.
You might not realize this, but 80% of the flowers that are consumed in this country are actually grown somewhere other than the United States. It really is a global marketplace. And so most of those are grown in either Colombia or Ecuador, really where they enjoy these perfect conditions, lots of sunlight. It's a great climate. And so weather doesn't really impact Valentine's Day. You know, that's why you can get flowers year round because of that. But still, if there is bad weather, it can affect it. And in fact, Colombia had a pretty rainy season from late fall into the winter. It does not necessarily impact the yield or the number of flowers that are coming off the plants. It just ends up making it take a little bit longer. You know, roses are all grown in greenhouses, even in Ecuador and Colombia. Like there's still a cover. So that's why when it's raining, it's not like the plants are getting sopped wet. You know, they're totally protected. It's just that there's not as much sunshine.
We've had a couple of really intense cold spells this year. How do you handle flower deliveries then? Can you leave them on the porch?
No, you don't want to. I mean, freezing 32 degrees is fine, but anything below that, no, the flowers will freeze. And so the florist is not going to leave anything on the porch. And I think in most cases, they wouldn't really be leaving them on the porch anyway, unless the recipient asks them.
Everybody picks roses for Valentine's Day. Is there something else we should be picking to be better to the environment, or are roses in plentiful supply?
Well, they're definitely in plentiful supply. There are plenty of roses. As far as like a more sustainable flower, obviously the flowers grown in your backyard or from a local grower, a local flower grower, are going to be your most sustainable choice because they haven't really had to travel far. And that's a great bet, but that's not really an option on Valentine's Day in most parts of the country.
One place in the U.S. that is great for growing flowers is California. And after several years of severe and really exceptional drought in that state, this winter saw heavy mountain snow and drenching rainfall across the region. But as Kevin Ramler in Fresno explains, even after all that moisture, it may take some time for the drought to be over.
For many years, our valley drought has been relentless. The last 3 years, the driest on record. Our local ag industry has taken a huge hit with the lack of water. The economic impact, $1.7 billion in revenue losses as valley growers struggle to keep healthy crops alive. But impressive precipitation amounts this winter are starting to turn things around. Right now, our Central Sierra snowpack is over 200% of average to date, with rainfall in the Central Valley at 166% of normal so far. A tremendous improvement. But as this U.S. Drought Monitor map indicates, most of the valley is still in a moderate drought. So when will this drought be over? Perhaps not this year, according to water and climate specialist at UC Merced, Dr. Roger Bales.
These droughts are multi-year events, and it takes more than 1 year to recover. If we get a couple more storms this year, we'll be getting closer to being out of the drought. But maybe that's not exactly the right way to frame it, because we get wet years and then we get multi-year dry periods. That's just part of what is California.
Getting out of the drought this year may depend on just how many more wet storm systems move across the Central Valley from now through the end of March. But even if no more significant rain and mountain snow come our way, Fresno County Farm Bureau CEO Ryan Jacobson is very optimistic that local water allocations for farmers here this year will be positive.
Simply because that snowpack up there is in such an exceptional shape right now.
After heavy rain, we can sometimes see fog. But did you know there are different types of fog? One of them called ADVECTION fog. Let's go to Syracuse, where meteorologist Violet Skybor says it's not the typical fog that you may have in mind.
The typical fog is called radiation fog. That's when we have clear skies, light winds, and fog develops overnight. This forms with a different process. and it's called advection, which means the transfer of heat. So advection occurs when we get either a southern system, a warm front, or warmer air coming in off of the ocean over a cold surface and cold land, maybe even snow-covered ground. And as this warm and moist air is transferred from one part of the country to another and moves over this colder land, those water droplets start to condense and form fog over that colder land. The difference with this is that it can form under cloudy skies and with even moderate to strong winds at times. So it's different than the typical fog that we think about. So to sum this up, when we do have a snow-covered ground, it helps. So this usually happens in winter. When warm, moist air moves over the cold ground, it is cooled to saturation. And this typically occurs with a warm front passage in winter.
Well, when you think of St. Elmo's fire, the movie or maybe the hit song from the 80s comes to mind. But it's also a weather phenomenon. And it looks like lightning, but it really is something else. Meteorologist John Gum explains.
All right, check out this video. It was sent to me by a pilot friend of mine, and it was taken as he was flying across South America. Now, while this might look like lightning, it's actually something called St. Elmo's fire. It's created when the atmosphere becomes significantly charged enough to create a discharge of plasma between the air and an object passing through it. In this case, a jet. Now, the electrical charges, they accumulate more around the sharp edges at the nose of the jet, and when there are enough of those charges, they can ionize the air molecules. The luminous plasma that's produced by this process appears as bluish or violet because of the presence of oxygen and nitrogen in the Earth's atmosphere. This is similar to the process that causes neon lights to glow. And while this might look terrifying to most of us, St. Elmo's fire isn't dangerous at all to the jet or the passengers inside. That said, St. Elmo's fire can be an indication of thunderstorm activity in the area around the jet, and sometimes it can be a warning sign there's a lightning strike about to come. Fortunately, that didn't happen in this case, and my friend tells me the St. Elmo's fire went on for about 30 minutes. Usually it's quick. This one lasted a long time. But just amazing, amazing video, again, taken from the cockpit over South America.
And as we head to break, we'll take a flight through Garnett Ghost Town and Drummond, Montana.
Well, a very good Tuesday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buckmichael. Wet and windy for a lot of the Midwest today. Even got some snow across the northern plains. Temperatures, though, kind of mild for most of us for today. Now, tomorrow it is going to get warm and windy for the Ohio Valley. We have some snow out across the plains for your Wednesday. And by the time that we get to Thursday, could see some severe weather across the Ohio Valley and accumulating snow across the plains heading up towards the Great Lakes.
Well, good Tuesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Chris Suchan. Our forecast today across the region, of course, Valentine's Day. We will start off with a little bit of umbrella weather across Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, East Texas, into Louisiana. But behind this front, the sun comes out, 60s, 70s, also on the windy side with a big drop in humidity. And then Wednesday, we'll start off on the cool side, but not terribly cold. Afternoon looks pretty decent. We'll see temperatures from the 50s, 60s, and 70s.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Tuesday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Chilly out in the Pacific Northwest. Highs barely cracking 40 today in Seattle and Portland. Cold for snuggling on Valentine's Day. In the meantime, we're only at 30 in Salt Lake City and a bone-chilling 20 out of Jackson Hole. Look at the weather makers. Look at all the snow showers over the Intermountain West and that big area of low pressure dropping rain and wind into Northern California. And that's the scene from here.
Have you ever looked in the sky and seen a cloud and thought it looked like smoke? Sometimes it is. Meteorologist Alan Seals explains.
This camera view from the city of Mobile looking northwestward into southern Mississippi. It was a bright, beautiful day with some high clouds, but those clouds are in the distance and they're lower. They're not actually clouds of moisture. It's a different sort of cloud, and the clue comes from satellite. High-resolution mid-afternoon satellite, and you look at where that arrow is, and what you're seeing there seems to be more gray than white. White, like the cirrus clouds in Mississippi and Alabama, and then another one pops up a half hour later across southern Mississippi. Well, those are smoke plumes. The giveaway, number one, is the color is different. Number two, they don't move. They stretch out, but they don't move, while the clouds totally move. And number three, they don't cast shadows like the high clouds do. So all of those are little clues to know the difference between smoke and a cloud when you look by satellite. Otherwise, your eye really can't always tell the difference. I'm meteorologist Alan Seals.
Thank you so much for joining us. Tomorrow on the National Weather Desk, we'll take a look at how wildfires form. I'm Angela Brown. Make it a great Tuesday, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow.